Nice. In one day. Luckily, I guess we don't have a night service tonight, so you don't have to listen to me 3 times in one day. But Brother Jason asked me quite a few weeks ago to teach on this Sunday, and which I would, you don't have to ask me twice to stand and teach or preach the word. And teaching was where I cut my teeth for 20 years. Matter of fact, when I came here, I was still teaching the adult class, and loved it, and still enjoy having those moments where you can get maybe away from the preaching side and getting into a teaching side of it, especially in a smaller group. I enjoy that. But this morning I'll get right on into somebody have to help me keep up with time. Okay. All right. So I'll kind of keep up with the time over there. As you all know, sometimes I struggle with that. But I want to look this morning, I want to start off by asking you a very simple question. Getting you engaged is one of the most important parts. We could sit and read the Bible from cover to cover, and it will do absolutely nothing if you're not engaged. And that's one of the things I enjoy the most. Every time I sit down, every morning I sit down to read through whatever scripture that it might be, that whether it's through Mark or Revelation or Ecclesiastes, where it's where I'm spending a lot of my time right now. Every time I sit down, I've got to try to engage myself and ask the Lord, what am I to see in this? What am I looking for? How's this applying to me? I can read a story and it's nothing more than history. I could read a history book and it means nothing to me because maybe it doesn't affect me. Maybe it's somebody else's life. So I need to get you engaged into what we're doing today. And I want to do that by asking a very simple question. And that question would be, have you had a time in your life when you had no idea what in the world was going on? You can pinpoint to a moment right now and you can say, you know what? I went to bed, everything was fine. I woke up, not a clue. Everything that I thought I knew completely turned upside down. I want to look at that. I want you to remember that thought throughout this morning. That's going to be how we're engaging ourselves into what we're studying today. In those times, whenever you have, I guess, those wake-up moments, you wake up, you expect such and such, whatever it is that you expect to happen, but by the day's end, you're looking and you're staring uncertainty square in the eyes. I'll take you back to March. I'm going to take you back to 2 March the 12th. March the 12th in 1993. We went to bed that evening. My dad was usually in a revival preaching. Most of the church knows now that that's my birthday. We were always in revival, and I'd prayed that whole week as a little boy that I just wanted to have a normal birthday. I've never had a birthday party. Well, I've had, I think, 2 in my life. I never had a birthday party, never had a birthday celebration because we were always in church. And I prayed that week. I'm going to be a teenager this year. I want to have a birthday. I want to have something normal. Lord, if you could just let me, I want to be with my family. I want to just have a birthday. I want it all be about me, those selfish prayers. We go to bed on March the 12th. We wake up on March the 13th with 3 feet of snow outside. No power for 7 days. We were stuck in the house together for a week. By week's end, I was done. I didn't care if I ever had a birthday again the rest of my life. Until March the 12th, 2020. I was laying some stone columns at our former church around the cemetery that we had there. We were putting up a big fence around all of it. You've probably seen it if you've been down there before. And I was laying all those stone columns and poured all the footers in the weeks prior. Had all the block delivered, so I'm out there that night. It's cold. I'm laying all the block that night, and I remember as I was laying the block, I was praying. It was on, I guess it was March the 11th. I was praying. I was like, Lord, this year, I just want to be with my family. I want my wife, I want my daughter there. It's my 40th birthday. I just want to enjoy time with my family. I know we're not, a family of great means or anything like that. Lord, you just help me be able to spend a good time with my family at home. March 13th, the world shut down. Those 2, I'll never pray that prayer again, by the way. So I don't care about my birthday ever again. So don't ever worry about me praying about my birthday. But those 2 days, you wake up You go to bed one way, you wake up another way, and it's uncertainty all around you. You have no idea what's going to happen on the other side. Now, in these times, most of the time when that kind of uncertainty hits, it usually has something to do with great distress. Usually you're not going to bed poor and waking up a millionaire. That's usually not the stories you hear about. They're there, they happen, but in our life, in the common person's life here, most of the time we're going to bed one way and waking up in a worse condition, or waking up in one condition and going to bed in a worse condition. Those are the times that we remember. Now in America, now we don't have. I would say this, and I don't want to cast too broad of a net. We don't have the suffering, I believe, in America that a lot of other countries have. We're a place of some of the highest wages. We're well overfed. I mean, obesity is running rampant in our country. We spend more money than any other country in the world. We have more government-funded programs to help people that are in need. If you don't have a job or have too many kids or whatever else, there's government programs there. Credit card. If all else fails, get a credit card. You'll probably get 3 or 4 of them in the mail this week. Sign up for a credit card, spend somebody else's money, and if all else fails, just write into the government, and they'll get taxpayer dollars, and they'll pay off your credit card debt. You can live free the rest of your life. You can get your school paid for, or they're trying to get your school. We're living in a place where we don't really know some of the suffering that some of the other people around this world is suffering from. Now, is that to say that there's people that we know that's not suffering from hunger? Oh, absolutely not. I know of kids at my own school that are homeless, that don't know where their next meal is going to come from. So we have that, but I don't think we have it at the scale that other countries may have to see some of this thing. So here in America, we may not know, but we have those times. My suffering that I will face, whatever that moment that you had that you come up with just a moment ago, your moment of suffering may be different than mine. It may have a different occasion. It may have a different origin. It may have a different outcome. But one way or another, we're all going to see my suffering is not going to be the same suffering as the little potbelly kid somewhere in some third world country that's living in starvation, going to factory jobs at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, making a few cents per hour or per day to do some manual labor job, drinking unhealthy, unclean. I mean, my suffering is not that suffering, but I've got my own set of suffering that I am seeing in my life. So I don't want to discredit your suffering. And don't let anybody ever discredit. I tell my daughter all the time, I hate it when I hear parents or teachers or adults look at their child and say, who cares? Who cares that your friends are being mean to you? Because to them, that's their suffering. They're not paying bills right now. They're not a father that has to worry about a child that's out driving, worrying about drunk drivers and everything else in the world. That's not what they're worried about. You know what they're worried about? Friends who are being mean to them. Bad grade on the test. That's what they're worried about. Our suffering may be different of origin, occasion, or outcome, but the fact is we all have it. Now, in saying that, I do want to take just a few moments of testimony. Here's the problem with testimonies. Testimonies, a lot of people have no idea how to testify. They have no idea how to tell a story or to engage other people through a story. They'll start a story, before you know it, they've chased 4 rabbits down to different holes. They've told more things than they need to tell, or not told things that they might need to tell to help the story. And then it just usually turns into, well, one time I was over at this other place. You know, it tells off. So I'm gonna try to help in one way to maybe allow you that time to share a moment. I don't want to hear the outcome. I don't want to maybe hear the origin of where it came from, but just specifically, does anybody have a time that you could share? Maybe you don't want to share. There's some times in my life when I woke up one way and went to bed another way that I don't want to share. I don't want to talk about it. Those times are between me and God. But maybe there was a time that you can share with the group, because you never know, somebody else in this group may have suffered from the same thing you have. But is there a time that you can say, I remember this, and I had no idea what to do? Do you have any of those?
When I was called to preach, I distinctly remember in the revival services that we were having throughout that week that I had a definitive belief that I was not ever going to preach. And I remember that because my dad told somebody else that was there that I was struggling with a call to preach, and I remember sitting there thinking, that's ridiculous. And then I went into a Wednesday night service at this revival at Temple Baptist Church in Powell, and I went out knowing that I was called to preach, having no idea of what I was doing, what I was supposed to do going forward, but I knew something had changed, and it had changed literally everything else about my life.
Woke up one way, went to bed another way. That happens to a lot of people. Somebody else?
So I went to school, and my parents, we had a dog that had died 3 months before. We had one dog. He was the dog of my life, if you want to put it that way. His name was Tigger, and he was the greatest. And I went to school. I came home, and he was gone. And I said to my parents, I said, where's Tigger? And they said, we had to put him to sleep. And I said, you didn't talk to me about this. And at 53 years old, it still affects me. Because I went to bed, and everything was great. Went to school and came back, and it was different.
Everything changed. In that moment, everything changes. We all have those times. Somebody else. We all have those times. Maybe it's something different. All right.
The day that I found out that we were moving to Tennessee, my entire stomach dropped because I was like, I am a sophomore in high school, about to start my junior year. I don't want to leave. I have 2 years left of school. And I was angry, and I was like, well, this is stupid. Nobody wants my opinion on it. Like, I don't want to move. But it turned out to be the greatest decision that my parents made for my life.
But in that moment,
But I was petrified.
in that moment, you were living in your house where you grew up. Everything was fine. And everything changed in that moment. Somebody else. There's got to be some.
I went to work one day, and this ain't a bad one, but it's kind of a good one. I went to work one day, and there was a new employee at work, and that caught my eye. And then,
What was his name? Oh,
and then just after it took a while, it took some convincing. But my whole life changed the moment that I seen Lori when she first came into my life. It was as if the Lord said, "There's who you've been praying for."
Sometimes you wake up one way, go to bed another way, and it's for the better. The majority, I would say, we would point back to those times that it did not happen that way. The time when the marriage ended, the time when the spouse died, the time when on and on and on, that we could point back to those times. We have those times. One of the greatest accounts of this found in our scripture was a man who woke up one day a billionaire, went to bed broke and homeless, woke up with a family that he was surrounded by and loved, went to bed, all of his kids killed in what we would assume to be a cyclone or some terrible tornado. A man who was a great agricultural farmer, was very well known for it, went to bed, not a single thing. Everything destroyed. A man who woke up, had friends one day. By the end of the day, his friends are chastising him, telling him that you failed God. A man who woke up with a loving and submissive wife. By the time he goes to bed, his wife is saying, you should curse God and die. You talk about a life-changing moment. One of the greatest accounts. I don't know that anybody in here has had one of those moments, but I want to look at how he responded in those moments and how you and I can respond in those moments. You may wake up one day, as he did, healthy, wealthy. Everything is going fine. By the end of the day, you got a terminal disease that will certainly end your life. I don't know what your time has been in the past. I don't know what your time will be in the future. You may be sitting here, maybe you're a little embarrassed right now because, I really don't have one of those times. Like the worst thing I can think about was, the time when I lost one of my shoes and I couldn't find the other one. And I was like panic trying to get to school. I only had one shoe. Maybe that's the worst thing that's happened in your life right now. If it is, God bless you. But I promise you, there's a day coming when you will wake up one day and go to bed another. I will never forget waking up. My mom was okay. By the night's end, by midnight that night, I'm in the emergency room reading Psalm while my mom is clinging to life. The first time that I saw her when she was alive. I saw her when everything was okay. The next time I saw her, they're taking her out of the back of the ambulance, and she's not alive. I woke up one way, went to bed another way. Those times will come in your life if you live long enough. If the Lord doesn't come back in those times are going to come in our life, and we need to see how should we respond in those times of great despair and devastation and depression and destruction in our life. Now, I don't want to mishandle this. Y'all know we're going to Job. I don't want to mishandle this. Job had his time later in the book when he began to question God and he began to ask God, why have you forgotten me? Do you even know where I'm at today? And all those things. And we'll talk about some of those things. But I want to look at Job chapter 13. I want to look at one phrase in one verse. He is in the heat of the battle. He has just woke up one way and going to bed another way, having lost it all. This man, at the height of everything falling apart, in verse number 15 of chapter number 13, he gives his answer and says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. I wonder if you and I, when you have those moments, be it a big moment or a little moment, that's not for me to decide. That's for you to decide. Your friends talk bad about you on Facebook. That may be huge in your world. I have no idea. In my world, I could care less what anybody says about me on Facebook or anywhere else in the world for that matter. I just don't care. But for you, that may be the moment you feel like your world is coming to an end. I have no idea. I'm not here to discuss what your suffering is. I'm not here to discuss how your suffering affects you. What I want to see is how do you respond in the midst of that suffering, those trials, that desperation, that moment when you feel like there's not one other thing in this world that could go wrong right now. Not one thing could go wrong. How do you respond in that moment? Job responded by saying, though he slay me, yet I'll trust him. All I have is given unto him. I want to look at this, just a little phrase here for a moment. I want to look at this little phrase here for a moment. He starts this phrase out with an interjection of the word though. This is the Hebrew word from the Masoretic text. This is the Hebrew word hain. The word hain is so interesting. Being an interjection, number one, an interjection is something that kind of stands alone. It doesn't really need to be there. You could read the sentence. You could take that word out. You could take though out and say, he slay me, yet I'll trust him. You could operate just fine with that. But he interjects this word by saying, though he slay me. This interjection expresses more of a feeling than a meaning. When you have these interjections, this is why understanding the language and what is behind the language is very important sometimes. Job is saying, when he says hain, Job is basically, this is what the word hain means. It means that look, behold, watch this. In the face of anything else, I want you to see how I really feel. This is what Job is saying. It's almost like Job looked down through the portals of time while he was sitting here in the deepest depths of despair that he could have been in his life, and he looked all the way down here to 2024 to where you're sitting right now, and he says, hey, look at what I'm doing. Though he slay me, though I'm at the deepest depths of despair in my life, I want you to watch. Watch how I handle this. Watch how God is going to bless through all this. This is when he says, though he slay me, he's saying, look here, behold, watch this. I love that idea. I wouldn't dare put myself in the category of Job. I wouldn't think of doing that. Wouldn't even want to even hint to doing that. But I will say this. Way back whenever, and I don't talk about in large groups in front of the church, I don't talk about the stuff that happened with Mom, and I try to avoid any of that. I mention it from time to time when it's relevant. This is one of those times when it's relevant. It's the most recent major event in our life. And nobody here really knows the entire event from the amount of times that we saw her die and come back. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how many times we saw that monitor go zero. And during those times, when I stood in front of the church, I told the church, and I don't know if you were here the night when I said it, but I told the church, I said, you watch how I handle this. You watch. If you see my knees get weak, if you see me running around like the sky's falling, then you know that you have a poor leader standing in front of you. In that moment, basically the same thing that Job was saying, though she may be laying dead, I want to trust God. You watch how much faith I'm going to put in God. It has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with what I've got. Has nothing to do with anything. My faith is in him. And Job said, though he slay me, Job said, I've put my complete and utter trust into the one that made the heavens and the earth, the one who laid the beams of the foundation, the one who caused the sun to shine. Though he slay me, yet I will trust him. Can you say the same thing? When you get into those moments of the deepest despair, well, I've never had anything happen to me like Job. That's not what we're talking about. Don't forget. We're not talking about the amount of suffering. We're not talking about the time of suffering. We're not talking about the situation of suffering. We are speaking to your reaction in suffering. There are people right now in churches everywhere that at the slightest bit of opposition, time to quit. Time to give up. Can't handle it no more. That's not Job's approach. That shouldn't be our approach. If that is your approach, then we need to back up, and I need to ask you, where does your faith lie? Does your faith lie in yourself and the doctors and your parents and your family, in your church and your pastor? If your faith is lying in any of those things, it is misguided. The faith has got to be, he says, though he slay me. Now, you want to slay me? You want to talk about me? You want to try to come against me? Hey, that's on you. No problem. Though he slay me, though the one who created the whole world slay, even if he slays me. If we could ever wrap our mind around that, and in the years of being in the public eye for a long time, I've been in the public eye since I will safely say from the time of about the age of 16, 17. That's when recruiting really started happening. People started noticing. People started talking. Newspapers, that was before internet was real big, but a lot of newspaper articles. Then you could start commenting on newspaper articles inside of their during that time, that's when I was kind of thrust into the public eye. And from that moment, from the very first article that ever happened, people began to talk. The very first time. Now you think about it, being a 16-year-old kid, and you're just loving what you're doing, and somebody writes an article, and the next thing you see, oh, he's this, he's that, he's a crybaby, he's a whiner, he's on down the line it goes. Like, what did I do? I don't even know these people. But I go back to what Job says. Though he slay me, I'll trust him. If the God of the universe is slaying me, and I'm going to trust him, you better believe I'm going to trust him when you're trying. You better believe I'm going to put my, let me move on. He says, uses the word trust. That's the yakal. There's a few different meanings of trust in the Old Testament that we could pull out. One means to flee to run to. I'm going to run to safety or shelter. I'm going to run to the cave. I'm going to run to the rock of Gibraltar. I'm going to run to a place where I have safety all around me. That's not the word that Job uses. Job is not saying, though he slay me, I will trust him. Though he slay me, I'm going to run over here and hide in safety. That's not what Job is saying. That's okay from time to time. I'm not preaching against that. I'm saying that's not what Job said in this time. At the moment of his greatest and deepest despair, he says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. This word trust, this word yakal means I will stand still. I will not be moved. My feet will not shake. I will not slip. I will stand exactly what Job is taking a stand. And he says, for the Lord, he says, though everything is falling apart around me, I want you to watch this. I will not be moved. I will not waver. I will not move from the position I've been. I will not back down. I'll not let up. I'll not go side to side. I'm standing exactly. The Old Testament maybe puts it this way: stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. When Moses was standing at the Red Sea, has an army behind him and the sea in front of him, has nowhere to go. God led them right to that point. Stand still. Don't run, don't flee. Don't trust me, Moses, by running over here or running over there. Trust me by standing exactly where I have brought you to.
Yeah.
When you have those times in your life, whatever it may be, and sometimes our suffering, unfortunately, is a very public thing. Sometimes it's for everybody to know, especially in the world that you all deal with a suffering that I didn't have to deal with. Growing up at your age, I didn't have to worry about what somebody, 4 states away thought about me. You all have to, because they can reach out and affect your life in a few clicks. Your suffering has become public now. Everything is public. And when that public suffering comes, you have a few options. You can wilt and wither. You can give up and run away. You can flee for protection, maybe protection in the church or protection in the Lord, where you can flee and you can find that safe place, not losing ground, but just kind of run and hide for a moment, maybe take the back seat, cancel accounts, and all those kind of things, kind of go black and then into hiding for a while. You could do that. Or you can trust him by standing firm right where you're at. We get some feedback, time to time. Brother Jason's dealt with it. We get some feedback from time to time from people. I don't know who they are. And they'll put some negative stuff on our face. I could easily go in and just say, just cancel Facebook, get rid of it, take that junk down. I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. That is a form of trusting God and fleeing to safety. But the route we take is talk if you want to talk. We ain't moving. We ain't changing the word. We're not changing the message. We're not changing what we're doing. I'm not changing who I'm at. I'm not changing the delivery style. I'm not changing for you. I'm not changing for them. I'm not changing for anybody else. Though he slay me, yet I'll trust him. I'll keep doing exactly what I need to do. Each of you all in here at some point, Job is a leader. There's no doubt Job's a leader. Job's been a leader. One of the oldest, from all accounts, the oldest book written, actually penned down, was the book of Job. Not in event order, but in chronological. Job's one of the oldest. Job's been a leader from the beginning of this Bible being formed. Job demonstrates some things throughout his life, and each of you all in here will be a leader at some point in your life. For every young man in here, I can tell you, you will be a leader if you have a family.
Yeah.
You're going to have to lead that family. For every young lady in here, I've never been a lady. I don't think I ever can be, no matter what they vote in. But you will be a leader in some form. You will have some little boy or girl pulling on your little skirt one day, and you've got to be a leader for that. You're going to be a leader. Let me give you some things about leadership. And I'm actually working on another book. Well, actually, I'm working on a couple different ones right now. This is one of them. It's the burdens of leadership. Most people think, I'm speaking in the church setting right now, and this could be applicable to your work. Food City, thank you. I kept wanting to say Kroger, and I knew that was not right. It could be Food City. It could be at Mayfield. It could be in the school system, in the car industry. I don't know where everybody else's jobs lie right now. UT. I mean, wherever your job is, this could apply there as well. Okay. Most people will look back and say, if I were in charge, If I was the leader,
Yeah.
if I was the boss, here's what I'd do. And it sounds good when you're not the boss, when you're not the one calling the shots. But when you are thrust into that leadership role, things change. Well, I can't believe my parents would make me do this. Wait till you're a parent. Things change real quick whenever somebody's life is in your hands and hinges upon every decision that you could possibly make for them. Things change drastically. The burdens of leadership: seclusion, silence, standing, steadfastness, sight, suffering, sinlessness. What does all that mean? In the time of leadership, you are going to live a very lonely life. Friends, you're not going to have the friends that you thought you were going to have. When you become a parent, it seems like friends go away because everybody else has got their kids. Silence. At some point, information has got to stop somewhere. Gossip has got to stop. All those things have to come somewhere to die. In this church, gossip and information, guess where it goes to die? There is a battle every single day. Every little comment that I hear. I mean, we're at a youth function, and I have somebody walk by me and my wife and say, "Y'all are stupid." How do I respond to that? Do I fly off the handle? Do I say, "You listen here for a moment"? Let it go. That comes in. It dies inside of me. There's a burden of silence sometimes that you have to keep. Dads, there is a big burden of silence. You can't tell your kids every single thing. They would be in misery. Oh my goodness. You didn't do a good job keeping me up on time. I can't look over there. Standing, steadfastness, sight, the burden of sight. You got to be able to look and see what's coming in the future. The burden of suffering, the burden of sinlessness. When you're in front of everybody, day after day after day after day, you have the burden of feeling like you've got to live perfect.
Right.
Anybody ever had that burden before? Anybody have that burden of feeling like you got to be perfect because everybody's watching what you're doing? Job had all these same burdens. And he says, though he slay me, yet I'll trust him. Oh my goodness, I could keep going on. I want to ask you this morning, in those times that you were thinking of just a moment ago, whether you spoke up, whether you didn't, how are you going to respond? Though he slay me, yet I'll trust him. You're going to say, I might need to take a step back here. I might need to ease off. I might need to let off the gas pedal some. Not me. Not you. When that suffering comes and that burden comes, hammer down. Though he slay me, you watch. I'm going to stand for the Lord. Because the burdens, the suffering, all those things are coming in life. I don't mean to be negative or anything. We're looking at the response to that. And I'll take this over to the end, just to tie this over to Calvary. As Christ was hanging on the cross, in that moment, Isaiah 53 said it pleased God to kill his son. Isaiah 53 said he was smitten, he was killed, he was beaten at the hand of God. And Christ hanging there on the cross, though he slay me, yet I trust him. As we face these times in our life, I encourage you, take that same stand. Job 13:15. If you're one of those people who write down verses and have them in inspirational places, Job 13:15 is a good one, because you never know when you're going to wake up one way and go to bed the next, and you're going to want to have something to cling to. Job 13:15 is a good one to cling to. Anybody got any thoughts or anything before we dismiss or close out this morning? I usually do more interaction time during lessons. Sorry about that. I'm a little rusty at this. I didn't have my game plan down like I ought to. I'm more in preaching mode these days. Anybody got anything? Teacher, you got anything?
Good.
Anybody got an experience? Now that we talked about some of those times on the front end, anybody got a response to how, well, this is what I did, or maybe this is what I would do different, or anything in your heart?
I won't go into details of what happened, but I had something happen that was earth shattering relatively recently, and I immediately thought of Job. And I immediately thought about how he said that the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away, and that regardless of what came, I would follow the Lord.
Absolutely. And we do feel bad at times because, I mean, maybe you're different than I and many other people, but we do feel bad at times, even trying to think about comparing ourselves to Job. But that's not what the book of Job is about. It's not to compare the suffering. Well, I ain't even close to Job. I can't even relate to what he's doing. No, yeah, you can. It's suffering. Your suffering is different. And we're going to be talking about it more in the service today. Wednesday night, we're in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. We're talking about seasons, a time for this, a time for that. And then, this message, when he mentioned to me the other day, this is where I went to. Job, what's the greatest thing our kids need to do in today's world? Stand.
Yeah.
Stand. That's where my mind went, stand. Encourage these young people to continue to stand in the onslaught of the world. When the waves are beating against you, stand, stand, stand. And now I'm sitting here looking like, we're doing this on Wednesday night. We're doing this in Sunday school. We're getting ready to do it again on Sunday morning. I didn't put this together. I mean, the Lord's putting this together. So don't think that, he just wanted to preach on storms in life. That's just the way the Lord's worked it out.
Amen.
But it's not for comparison to Job. So that's not what it's about. It's about your suffering and how to respond in it. Anybody else before we go? All right, we'll be dismissed. Actually, I'll turn it back over to the teacher because he needs to probably dismiss. I'm used to being on the other side of it. Brother Jason, you come dismiss everybody how you normally dismiss.
I did not get a chance to go over this, but remember our Christmas light tour coming up December 14th. Time still get there. Still remember your homework. Who's doing your homework on that? Who knows what the homework is on that?
Some kind of wood, right?
Yeah, some kind of like a little something or other. All right, so probably I'm thinking maybe around 4 or 5, no later than 5, if that helps. So you need to ask off time from work or something. So all right, you are free to